My Jets Super Bowl team, I'm feeling like that might not actually happen.
Don't give up yet.
Well, if they get there, it won't be with Robert Saleh. That is number one in our pick six.
Whoa.
The Jets have fired their head coach. I always think every year, I was like, I kind of want to do that, the pool of which head coach is going to be fired first. But then I'm like, well, that's kind of crappy to like root for something like that or try to get.
That's very Florio of you.
Exactly.
That's something he would do.
But mentally, I'm doing that. And mentally, I would have done the other New York coach, honestly, Brian Daboll. I would have been like, if they start out slow.
Before the year, you would have picked him to be the guy. Yeah.
And so I'm half right. It was New York here.
Yeah.
So JD's burner wants to start off this conversation, and we'll let him. Nah. It's all on Robert Saleh. This is sarcastic. Totally not on JD, Joe Douglas, the GM, for trading for a guy who doesn't even want to play for the Jets and firing Saleh's hand-picked offensive coordinator and drafting Zach Wilson. So Robert Saleh fired.
Yeah.
Deserved.
Yeah. There's a lot there. Where do I even start? Is it deserved? No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, I understand we can question it in totality what he's done to this point and go, well, it's been underwhelming. I understand that. But 2-3 and having a chance on Monday night to be first place in your division if you beat the Buffalo Bills, yeah, I think that's a little rapid in as far as coming to the conclusion that he's not the guy and the right guy for the job going forward. It's only 5 games into the Aaron Rodgers experiment. So you have to treat it like it's a new year there, too, as well. They're tinkering. They're figuring out how they want to play, do that, right? I look back at the years of, like, Brady with the Bucs. The first year, they were 7-5. It was like, man, are they going to make the playoffs? I don't know. It looked ugly. And then all of a sudden, it got to, like, week 13 and 14. We started to go, this looks like the old Tom Brady all of a sudden. And then we got to the playoffs, and all of a sudden, we were like, oh, shit, he's on fire. Here we go. And we're going for the ride. And I wouldn't have gave up on that dream and that formula of what we have working there right at that moment. Now, where I'll say with J.D. Burner, all right, I don't agree with you totally there. I don't, right? Now, I know blame can go all around here for sure. And Joe Douglas is not responsible for, in totality, of Aaron Rodgers taking over the organization, okay? That was the ownership, everybody who all went in on Aaron Rodgers and therefore made him king of the organization. And, yeah, they all do what he says to a degree. I mean, he's that big time of a blue chip type player, right? So they were willing to, oh yeah, you got your rules, we'll do this for you. Yes, when you're that guy, first ballot Hall of Famer, that's what happens in those organizations. Now, the other part of that is, I know he's getting on Joe Douglas, but I would say too this is one of the best teams in football on paper, and this is why the owner is pissed. And this is why you talk to anybody in football, they're going to tell you the talent on the Jets is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. So it's fair to place blame on Robert Saleh for not getting the amount of talent or amount of results out of this talent to this point, right? I get that, but does that mean I would fire him week 5? No, it does not.
So I know that you're well-connected, and I know that you've talked about the Jets before, and so I'm sure you don't like to be break-your-newser guy, and you kind of let the dust settle sometimes before you start poking around.
Right.
But your gut, from what you know about the situation, what do you think happened here? Why now?
I have no inside info here, right? The Jets they're on lockdown right now. Everybody's afraid to talk, say anything, have it traced back to them, right? So I put out a few feelers yesterday. I got very cold responses, right? So, and that's what I expected. This is something that, I'll hear about more down the line, like you said. But either way, my gut tells me, right, from everything we've heard and connecting dots, one, owner, even probably Joe Douglas is like, what? We're 2-3? I mean, it's an all-star defense. We got pretty good receivers. We got 2 damn good backs.
Schedule wasn't terrible to start the year.
Schedule wasn't terrible. Offensive line is better. So why aren't the results better, right? So I think there's frustration there right off the bat, from the very top, going right to Woody Johnson. Second thing that goes into this conversation, where did they just play? UK. Who was the ambassador to the UK under the Donald Trump presidency? Woody Johnson. You don't think he's got some buddies there that added to this, like, hey, we're coming to town. We're really good this year. We're going to show you. We're going to show the UK. We're a Super Bowl team, blah, blah, blah.
And then his friends were like, hey, man, what's wrong with your football team?
You guys aren't very good. That team in purple's better. So I do think there's the embarrassment of that maybe plays into this, or maybe the emotions of it to make it a little more hasty, right? But then we get into the things you hear, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And again, I don't know if everything's true, but again, you're asking my gut feel here. My gut feel is that they went into a staff meeting on Monday morning. He told the staff that Nathaniel Hackett wasn't going to call plays or do anything anymore, which first off, I want to be like, why is anyone blaming Nathaniel Hackett? This is Aaron Rodgers' offense. This is what he wants to do. Nathaniel Hackett wouldn't do just exactly this. I've seen his offense in Jacksonville and other places. This is not what he does. He does this to a degree. He believes in some of this, certainly, but he's doing this because it's around the prism of what Aaron Rodgers wants to do, right? So I don't like that people blame Nathaniel Hackett necessarily for all of this stuff here. I know he deserves some blame, right? But this, again, goes into the organizational, we'll let Aaron Rodgers do whatever he wants. But my gut, to follow up on what I was saying, is that they told Nathaniel Hackett, you're not going to call plays or you're going to share duties, right? And he or somebody got out of that meeting and called Aaron Rodgers and said, hey, they're demoting me. And then Aaron Rodgers called the owner and said, what the is going on? And that went to that decision. I know Woody Johnson says he talked to him the night before. He might have talked to him the night before. He said he didn't talk about the coaching stuff at all. I find that extremely hard to believe that first off, that didn't come up. There's no way. There's just absolutely no way. So either way, whether that conversation went down the night before or whatever happened on Monday morning added to a second conversation, that is what my gut would tell me. I don't think Woody Johnson does all of this after what they've treated and how they've treated Aaron Rodgers, king of the organization. I don't think he does all this and doesn't run it by Aaron Rodgers and talk to him and feel it out a little bit. There's no way. There's no freaking way that goes down like that. So did Aaron Rodgers know about it? I'm sure. Did he get involved in it? I don't know, but my gut tells me yes.
So normally when you see something like this, it's early in the season from a team that's probably going nowhere. Maybe had higher expectations. We're like, well, this is a lost year. Let's fire the head coach. Let's start the process of bringing in someone else. We'll have an interim. This interim here is Jeff Ulbrich. Brick or Bridge?
Yeah, Ulbrich. You're right.
Building one brick at a time.
One brick at a time.
But that's clearly not the case with the Jets. They think that Jeff can come in here and perform better than Robert Saleh.
I guess.
Because they don't want this to be a lost year. That's why they made the move.
I guess. I mean, Ulbrich is right from the same coaching tree and is here because of Saleh and is basically an extension of Saleh. So if they feel like maybe Saleh lost the team in some ways and his message was being lost and that, then maybe. But I feel like the message is still going to be the same. I know Jeff Ulbrich a little bit. I know how he coaches and what he does. His mantra is going to be very similar to Robert Saleh. All gas, no brakes, fly around, play hard. We're going to hustle, do all that. So I don't know where that changes necessarily. And he's in a tough spot too. I know he made comments about, well, we're going to look at the offense. They're not going to do anything unless they talk to Aaron Rodgers. I cannot imagine that Aaron Rodgers is going to be cool with, wait, we formulated all this and we worked on your offense and got everybody on the same page, and now it's week 6, and we're going to go, Todd Downing's doing it now. Like, I just don't imagine Aaron Rodgers being cool with that. And so that if that is what happens, I'll be interested to see how this plays out. And if there is a new formula on offense, which I think there needs to be, like I said to you on Sunday night, hey, all for it, certainly. But I still think Rodgers is in the know and a part of all this decisions for sure.
Well, let's take a look at the Jets' ranks defensively and offensively. So defensively, and Saleh was the defensive guy with the 49ers.
Yeah.
I mean, here they have been elite. Their elite talent has shown to be elite on the field. You see some of those ranks and the points allowed per game this season, tied for 5th. Yards allowed per play is 1st. So, I mean, this is a defense that can win a Super Bowl.
It's one of the best in football, period. The only thing they don't do that you would like to see out of a defense this talented and elite, and we've talked about this before, is cause some more turnovers and stuff like that, right? Because they kind of just do what they do, that doesn't allow them to create a lot of turnovers. But at the same time, it's hard to do anything against the Jets. We just talked about it on Sunday night too. The Vikings have shredded every defense they played this year. They had a hard time getting first downs at certain points of the game against the Jets. The Jets defense is phenomenal across the board. Right? The Vikings played all those good teams, the 49ers, the Texans, whatever. None of those defenses can mess with the Jets. The Jets are phenomenal there. And yeah, that's where it's a little weird too. Now, I don't think they're going to lose anything on that side of the ball because Ulbrich is the defensive coordinator and it's still the same staff and it's still going to be the same message. So they're not going to lose much. But yeah, for a defensive coach, to get fired in week 5 and the defense is thriving and the offense is behind the 8 ball, and a little bit of that is because the whole organization has empowered Aaron Rodgers to be king of it. That is where I go, that's a little odd to me to fire that guy right now.
And here's been the frustration, the flip side of that. The Jets' offensive ranks, we're going to compare week 5, 2023 through week 1 through week 5 from last year to the first 5 weeks this year. And there are improvements in some areas, not in other areas. I mean, they have not rushed the ball at all with Aaron Rodgers behind center here. And so this is the major frustration. So I'll ask you this.
Or yards per play, right? Those are the two things. And those go hand in hand to me. Because even with that, like Zach Wilson and other people, teams were scared of the Jets at least throwing the ball down the field every now and then. Right now, it goes a little hand in hand because they're just like, wait, Rodgers is going to hand it up the middle, or it's going to be a short throw over the middle, or a short throw in the flat, right? Or a little swing route to the back, or Garrett Wilson on a little bubble route, right? So those two things kind of play hand to hand, and that's different. But I will say their offense is better this year.
So let me ask you this. Is there a path to even better numbers than this?
I do. I do think there is. I do. Now, again, I think there's got to be some tinkering done, and maybe they got to take Rodgers out of his comfort zone a little bit to go, hey.
Who's going to do that?
I don't know. That's where they got to sit down and try to figure out, and maybe last week and the fact that their offense hasn't worked the way they wanted to 2 weeks in a row with ugly losses to the Broncos and the Vikings, to where maybe he'll start to be a little willing to look at some new ideas or some new ways to attack.
You've brought this up to me.
But I don't know if he will.
You've brought this up to me in the past, and I think you've mentioned it on the podcast too, with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
It's not going well early on. He's making some mistakes.
Right.
Bruce Arians gives two nothings about nothing.
Yes, he gives two. He does not give a.
Right. Yeah, he does not.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
No. Right.
I was too worried about not swearing right there. I didn't know what to say. But there's no one in the Jets organization right now that has that kind of disposition to do that to Aaron Rodgers.
There's nobody there, I don't think, that I look at that can do that. To put the hot poker, as you and I always talk about, right? Just, hey, come on, hold the ball in the pocket. Be a little more aggressive. Do that. Right?
So Aaron's going to have to come to this himself.
I mean, I think to a degree, or it's going to have to be massaged by, other coaches involved and see if they can get him to go there. We'll see where it goes. But as I said, and as you heard me say, it might look good when you play the Patriots and some of the defenses that are simpler and not as talented in the world. The good defenses with talent and then a little creativity are going to be all over this Aaron Rodgers stuff. All over. I have no doubt about that. And this goes back into what I've told you during the quarterback rankings and even the preseason. Does Aaron Rodgers, can he play the way he thinks he can play? And my answer at this point is no. This is not Aaron Rodgers from 4 years ago. We're going to run these little simple plays and then still make incredible throws or get out of the pocket and buy a little time and then go, well, the play is simple and normal and he executed great. But if it's not there, he's so amazing, he makes it work anyways. Those days are done. And that's where it has to change, and hopefully he can do that. But yeah, he had Bruce Arians. Tom Brady had Bruce Arians poking at him, and he had Bill Belichick. He had two pokers his whole life that were constantly like, you can do better. You can do better. I know you're the best in football, but you can do better. I'm
not scared of you.
I'm not scared of you. Exactly right. And that's the way good football teams function. I mean, think about a dynasty. Do you know any dynasties where you're like, yeah, the quarterback was running the team, not the head coach, right? Yeah. You think Terry Bradshaw and Chuck Noll? I mean, he was scared to death of Chuck Noll. Joe Montana and Bill Walsh? He was scared to death of Bill Walsh. Yeah. Not my dad is not a dynasty, but just more examples. I mean, was shit scared. He's still scared of Bill Parcells to this day. Jimmy Johnson and Troy Aikman, you go through it, right? It doesn't matter. There's got to be a boss and somebody that's going, I know what's best for our football team. I know you like to do this, but this is what's best for the team, right? And that is usually the greater good. Peyton Manning, his last year, he wants to throw screens and do all this and have great numbers and all. And they go, no, we're going to run the ball and be ugly and play through our defense. We're going to win a Super Bowl, though. And I bet you he's very grateful for that, even though it was probably a pain in the ass at the time. But that's the way it goes. And, of course, Belichick and Brady, we know how that hierarchy went as well. Yo, homies, thanks for watching. Yeah, it's time. The NFL season is here on Chris Simms Unbuttoned.
You can hit subscribe to get all the weekly picks, plus our Sunday recaps as the games are happening.
Oh, you know it. Nobody does that better than us. Thanks again for watching. Remember to subscribe. Peace out. We'll see you next time on Unbuttoned.